You know, if we're going to be reasonable about things, people talk about is faith reasonable? If you're going to talk about the reasonableness of faith, the first question you have to ask, and I actually learned this from the philosopher Immanuel Kant.
Ah, yes, Immanuel Kant. A name which I believe is an abbreviation for the sentence, "a man can't know reality," because that basically is the conclusion of Kant's epistemology. But don't take my word for it. Let's take Dinesh D'Souza's word for it. Dinesh D'Souza, who appears to be a pretty big fan of Immanuel Kant. Let's see what Dinesh D'Souza has to say about Kant's philosophy.
Kant is very good on all this, and he talks about the fact, one of my favorite quotations from Kant is, "Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made."
I love how Dinesh says this in a room that is clearly constructed with 90-degree angled walls that stand up perfectly straight, and a room that's definitely powered by electricity and presumably climate controlled. Recording this video with video cameras and microphones and probably other equipment. Uploading this clip to YouTube, which would not be possible without software engineering and algorithms and electricity and the internet and so many other technological wonders. And I'm sure Dinesh is well aware of the fact that we've sent men to the moon and back and sent robots to Mars and a bunch of other technological wonders that humanity has created. And despite all of this, Dinesh still stands there and is all like,
This Immanuel Kant guy has a good point. No straight thing was ever made out of the crookedness of humanity.
It truly is amazing that anyone alive today would look at Kant's ideas and think they're intelligent, and yet we have people like Dinesh D'Souza preaching Kant's anti-reason epistemology with a straight face.
It's Kant's way of saying that human nature is a little bent, it's a little warped. And so we have to design economic and political and social systems that acknowledge that are based on that realistic perception of human nature. If you ignore what human nature actually is, you're going to come up with ideas that don't really work very well in the world. But the greatest contribution of Kant, philosophically, and I'm going to get philosophical only for a minute or two, is actually to say that before we talk about reason, we need to know the boundaries of reason. In other words, we need to know where reason cannot travel. There's no point trying to apply reason where reason can't go.
First off, this is just flat out ridiculous, but even if it were true, we wouldn't even be able to know the boundaries of reason by Kant's own logic, or lack thereof. If our perception truly is skewed or limited according to Kant, then we would not even be able to identify the boundaries of reason. And I'm sure some people out there disagree with me, to which I would say, if you want to listen to Dinesh D'Souza and Immanuel Kant, then I say, feel free to arbitrarily decide when to suspend your own rational judgment.
But where is it that reason can't go? And what Kant does is he actually shows that our perception of the world, even the simple things in the world, is actually very limited. He gives a very telling example, and I'm going to adapt the example to our own situation. If I were to go, for example, and stand on the beach, and what do I perceive out there? I perceive the ocean. But how do I perceive the ocean? I mean, the ocean doesn't jump out and go into my head. How do I actually perceive anything? The way I perceive it is I look at the ocean and my mind constructs a picture or photograph of the ocean. That's how I perceive it. I perceive it in my head.
Oh, really? Is that how our senses work? Does this standard apply to any of our other senses, like hearing. For instance, when you listen to a song on Spotify or Pandora, does your brain just recreate noises inside of your head? Or how about when you touch an ice cube, does your brain just concoct the sensation of cold? Or what about biting into a lemon? Does your brain just then recreate the sensation of sour? Perception is the base of all knowledge, and your senses are your means of perceiving reality. They are your means of acquiring information so that you can interact with reality.
Actual reality.
So when you go to the ocean, when you step onto the beach, you can hear things, you can hear the wind, you can hear the waves crashing, you can maybe hear a boat off in the distance, you can hear seagulls flying around.
Feel the weight of the ball because you're actually holding the ball.
You'll probably feel a breeze here and there with the sun beating down on your skin, and if you decide to step into the ocean, you'll feel wet, you'll feel the water going up your leg the further you decide to walk into the ocean.
Feel the wind as you move because you're actually outside.
You definitely smell the ocean with that distinctive ocean smell. What the hell is that smell? Is that fish? I never really properly identified that scent.
Feel the high fives because you're actually there.
And lastly, you see the ocean for what it is because your eyes and your consciousness are interacting with reality.
Actual reality. Nothing else comes close.
Your sense of vision is not merely a series of imperfect photographs taken by a Polaroid camera. Or think about a multiplayer video game in which you and your friends are all playing the same game in the same room, like Super Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart. Everyone is in the same room looking at the exact same television, interacting with the game, interacting with whatever image comes on the TV. It's not like all of the players are looking at the image and recreating different images in their different heads. No. Each player is looking at the exact same image and reacting accordingly.
And now Kant asks a very deep question. How do I know that my perception of the ocean is the same as the ocean itself? In other words, how do I know that the picture in my head resembles the reality that it's supposed to be picturing?
You know it's the ocean because the ocean is right there, right in front of your eyes. The ocean is what it is. I don't know how else to say it. If you cannot rely on your senses to know what a fucking ocean is, then how can you rely on your senses in your mind for anything?
You know, that's a really good question.
I mean, think about this for just a minute. Normally, how do we know that two things are similar to each other? If somebody told me, here is a painting, here's the official portrait of Barack Obama. How do I know if this is actually Obama? Well, I need two things. I need the portrait and I need Obama. I need to look at the portrait and then I need to look at Obama and see if the two match. And if they match, I can go, yeah, that's a really good portrait. Looks exactly like Obama. But I need both to do that.
This is the beauty of the application of reason. Thanks to reason and logic, human beings now have the tools to expand our senses beyond what nature already gave us. Now, if you have been paying attention, earlier in this clip, Dinesh said that there are places where reason cannot go. Yet, thanks to tools like cameras and telescopes and microscopes and microphones and cell phones and satellites and so many other amazing pieces of technology, we can know what Barack Hussein Obama looks like without ever having to meet him in the first place. All thanks to products and machines made by humans for the sake of better understanding and grasping reality. But then again, Dinesh did say that no straight thing was ever made from the crookedness of humanity.
But Kant's point is that if I'm standing in front of the ocean and I make in my head a picture of the ocean, I actually only have one thing, the picture. I don't actually have the ocean. I only have the picture I've made in my head, and I can't compare it to anything.
Yes, you can. This is where conceptualization comes in handy.
I gotta learn stuff from my observation.
Where you take note of various entities in existence and you give them an identity. In other words, you identify them and take note of their characteristics so that you can distinguish them from other entities in existence. So imagine you're standing on the beach, looking out at the water, so you conceptualize the water as the ocean, and then you might turn to your left and you see some land that's sloping upward, so you conceptualize that as a mountain or a hill. Then you turn to your right and you notice a large collection of trees, so you conceptualize that as a forest. And then you turn around to look behind you and you see a taco truck, so you conceptualize it as a taco truck because it is a truck that people make tacos inside of in hopes of selling at a profit.
Man, I gotta say, a taco really sounds delicious right now.
Anyway, back to the video.
In other words, what Kant is actually saying is that when we experience the world, we have only our perception of the world. But the world in itself, the world as it is outside. This is just another way of saying something that all the great religions of the world have always said.
Oh, all of the great religions, huh? And which religions would those be exactly? Is Dinesh talking about every religion to ever exist?
No, of course not.
Or is he just talking about a few of the popular ones? Or is Dinesh primarily concerned with his own religion? Of course, this clip is from a lecture where Dinesh talks all about the wonders of Christianity and why America needs more of it. And this is why Immanuel Kant did what he did. He wanted to undercut reason and knowledge in order to make room for belief, in order to make room for faith, in order to make room for God.
And that is, we have the world, we have our perception of the world, but there is a world behind the world. There is another world.
How the hell does Dinesh even know that there is a world behind the world if he is incapable of knowing this world to begin with?
That we are only dimly aware of, that we see, as the Bible says, through a glass darkly. And human reason can only, you may say, get a whiff of that world. Kant calls it the noumenal world. And so this is the way in which, again, not modern physics in this case, but modern philosophy is beginning to reach out to what we can call the invisible, the eternal, or the transcendent.
It is rather amazing that Dinesh is using the law of identity by using various concepts, which were conceived by people observing reality and abstracting from the concretes.
Abstract from the concretes and form a concept. It helps me to organize and store them shit.
Dinesh just takes all of these observations of reality to essentially say that we cannot observe reality. We cannot trust our perceptions and our own rational judgment. In other words, Dinesh is using the law of identity to doubt the law of identity, concluding that reality is unknowable and our capacity to reason is limited. Doesn't that sound wonderful, folks?